So this is a 2023 QH12. I got it from a company out of Chicago, delivered here to the south side of Birmingham, Alabama. The date is, November 11th, 2023. So about $6,100 delivered. They give a written warranty. You buy them through eBay or Amazon or direct. I got this one off of eBay, so it was marked up a little bit in order to cover the fees, and it was marked up, of course, for delivery. It was free delivery for that price, and taxes that come included in that. So this is a little 13.5 horse Briggs. This is the one that commonly a lot of people put fans on these to pull the hot air out. And you can understand why. It's a little compartment, metal compartment, completely closed in except for these vents here and the one on the back. So either way, it's a not a bad looking little machine for sure. They've definitely come a long way in the last 5 or 6 years. I've had the Harbor Freight towable. I have currently the Nordtrack towable, and we've had another no-name Chinese tracked unit, and then a Chinese wheeled unit. And I tell you that this one's quite a bit better in construction, and a lot better in some of the hardware, like you see here. Hardware that hopefully won't rust out on you in the first night. And a lot more bracing inside here for different places. Trying to keep the thing from, vibrating itself to death. These obviously, a lot of people point them out. The back doesn't open. You got to take bolts out in order to get it off. This part down here is not an actual counterweight, although it's a heavier gauge steel than this piece. It's just that it's a steel cover, and you can kind of see that in the holes that they've drilled on the side for ventilation. And it's I guess probably not a hateful spot for a fan. But see the tracks and see the different motors. You can see what type of pumps you've got on there. As I understand it, most of these things you can find them on eBay or Amazon, Alibaba, pretty easy. Like I said, the Briggs, it's just a flip forward seat. One that I seen another guy do was block these up about an inch, so that seat is up about a ½ inch or so. That way heat has a way to escape a lot easier out the top, instead of trying to force it out the vents on the side. But little things that China still isn't very good at. Very cheap plastic hinges. The light switch doesn't stay down. These are things that your Kubotas, your John Deere's, they wouldn't even think about letting that out of the factory like that. And you can expect that switch probably not to last long. That's part of the difference when you're talking $6,000 versus $9,000 to $12,000. I'll buy a $3 switch, don't worry. So, had to pull the panel off the floorboard here because I unscrewed the lid for the hydraulic fluid, and I unscrewed it and it fell right off and went right down in between the frame and the tank. And I had to go find my retrieval tools in order to get it out because it was not going to come out on its own. That sucker was in there good. It was wedged down in there. It's just enough room for the fill cap to lay sideways in there. But I figured while it's open, let's go ahead and take a look. And you can see some of what's going on down in here. And it might help you understand if you're looking at one of the vendors out there that has taken the time to build kind of a brand around theirs, and they've upgraded the pumps and the reservoirs and lines, and they've got a hydraulic cooler, and they got different wiring. That'll help you see some of that and understand what it means compared to one that is basically just a mass-produced right off the shelf. It's not the most glamorous, but I believe it'll be very functional for a very long time. But I thought it was interesting. They give you the sight glass so you can see your liquid level in the battery. And if you got enough liquid, that thing glows green pretty good. So that was neat. They went as far as to put a little bit of insulation underneath the strap. The one thing I looked at and thought, not quite sure about that, is you can see that pump there and how it's keyed into that bracket that holds it. We'll see what that looks like in 100 hours, how well that key looks. The welds look good, and as long as they use, good hardened steel, it's probably okay. But caught me off guard a little bit. I didn't expect that. This is just the cover, the floorboard cover. It's just 3 bolts. They're all 12 millimeter. A little odd, or I think they're 12. Yeah, I think they're 12s. Expected them to be 10s. You can see all the grease zerks. They show up with a little bit of grease on them. Some grease oozing out here and there. So it looks like they do grease it before they leave the factory. And everything does have grease fittings. Everything that's intended to move has grease fittings. And most of them are your typical nipples, but they do have several of these recessed ones. And years ago, I used to swap those out all the time. Nowadays, I leave them because the first rock, stick, tree trunk, something that hits it, bust off those little nipples. And, here you get a little bit of protection with this bracket, but there you got nothing. So I do tend to leave them. The adapter comes with most grease guns today. It's no big deal. You can see the chassis system and what it looks like. It's decent. I'm gonna guess that's about 4 inches. And it's got the cross beam, and then it's got the hoop that goes up and over it. It's not bad. Would really like the Chinese to start pushing these front blades out a little bit further. Another 6-8 inches would be great on these things. And they make them quite thick here. I mean, you're 3/4 of an inch or so, but if they gusseted them a little bit to give some strength up here. I never broke one, but I have bent them. So something to consider. But I mean, the blade is pretty basic. It is thicker than all the others that I've messed with. It's not adjustable. There's no winglets on here or anything. That sucker is heavy, so it definitely has some weight in it. And the welds on them look good. I mean, they look really good. In general, the craftsmanship of it is okay. The boom looks good. Again, all the fittings and grease zerks and things that you'd expect. They put these little, I guess, line savers on these things. You pay a little bit more, you can get hard-lined for a lot of these. And of course, you got your auxiliaries. All of them seem to be very typical. For some reason, you can't get auxiliaries on most tractors, but you get auxiliaries on every one of these. You can get hard lines if you want to pay a little bit more. Again, I just wasn't looking for that. If you look here, this isn't all the way through, meaning it looks like that should have been a longer shank or shaft coming through there. It's greasable on the other side, but you tighten it down. There's no washer in there. There's no plate. There's nothing really to prevent you from over tightening these and pinching this. Just in general, I wish this shank would have been a little bit longer. I mean, both of them are that way, but we'll see how that wears. As my fear is that it'll wear in, and since that doesn't come all the way through this plate and out the other side, it's going to walk a little bit. And I imagine that you're going to be rewelding those, rewelding them and then cutting them out or machining them again before the service life of this little track hoe is dead. And that is the truth on a bunch of these, is that you see where it's wearing right there. You're probably going to be rewelding them and boring them back out before the rest of the machine dies. But price to pay. Either pay when you buy it or pay over time through maintenance. And for a small home use, I mean, this is sitting on a little 4-acre property. The use that it gets for that and a little bit of light commercial landscaping, this thing will probably last years and years without problems. it'll have its typical things that all small engines have. Somebody will forget the fuel and won't put stabilizer in it or something. The undercarriage, you can see what it is. Fairly beefy. Again, I think they have advanced. They've definitely done better in the past couple years with the quality. I still think the metal is pretty cheap on the body work, but I think they have definitely learned some of their lessons on the undercarriage and the swing arm, the pivot points, things like that. Yet to see about the tracks. We'll see what those come out, how they work. Some of these have problems where the tracks pop off quite a bit, and you have to do some tuning and adjustment. The undercarriage on these, in my experience, the sprockets are a little small. You know, you get into the more name brand, and the sprockets are either a bit bigger, or at least the teeth are bigger. But again, you got to remember its purpose. Its purpose is a very small property or garden, you know, light residential use, even in the commercial market, and a crew that is fairly mechanically inclined. The other thing a lot of people wonder is about the, they call them ROPS. I'm going to say you don't call these ROPS. That is more sun protection, head protection, than it is rollover protection. It's just, you know, there's a lot of leverage up here, and it moves around pretty decent. There's a couple manufacturers out there that really beef theirs up, and you know, on the inside here, I don't know if you can see it through there, but this pole does come down and meet a square tube that comes all the way down to the main plate underneath here, which is part of the weight plate and part of the body structure. It's the floor down inside there. And again, that's a 3/4 inch plate. That's about, what is that? 2.5, 2 3/4 by 3 foot. And it does come all the way down and anchor in, but these are, you know, whatever they are, 1.25 inch pipe, and they're just not that strong. I'd be willing to bet that if you just fell over on flat ground, you know, cranked on the stick too hard and flipped the thing over backwards, it's going to bend them, it's going to fold them forward a little bit, but it's going to keep it from going on over. And if you fall over sideways, it's going to prevent it from going over. So in some ways it's a ROPS, but it's not great. If it was true ROPS, you probably would have brought them all the way out to here and mounted them just to give some more spread. But better than nothing, but not necessarily rollover protection. They do give you a cell phone and a cup holder. That's just the hardware. The wing nuts are for the seat so that you can screw them down. Most people probably never put them in. And then the other bolts are there for the floorboard. I just tossed them up there. So basic controls. If you've ran the Nortrack with a 2-stick, you know what it is. If you've only ran the Harbor Freight and you're upgrading to something that's mobile, then you have a little bit of a learning curve. I haven't done anything other than put the boom down. I didn't actually pay attention to what controls it's got, but I think most of them now are coming out with the John Deere controls, unless they have the switch to flip back and forth. But you can unhook them, do whatever you want. You can see a little bit in there what the valve body looks like. Not the easiest to see in there. I do like, they've definitely put a bigger plate here than others I've seen, older ones. And that's because, you know, you're cranking on it all day long, and or, well, however long, but you're cranking on it and you don't want that moving around. So that definitely should help. But other than that, still got to take the bubble wrap off that one. I got off all the others. And, you know, the thumb is standard, but it's mechanical. Lots of people out there building hydraulic ones or buying them. Standard bucket. I will say for this size machine, that bucket is probably pretty big, unless you've got some soft dirt work going on. I run a smaller bucket than that on the, I think it's a 14-horse Nortrack, and it's even a little much for that. So I will say that these buckets, remind me a little bit more of the Harbor Freight trencher bucket. Thinner, lighter welds. I think you would run, or I would have a little bit of fear of peeling this bucket back, you know, breaking the welds and peeling it back. But we'll see. I mean, if we break it, we'll put a different one on there. And that's the nice thing about them, is they're fairly typical. You can find a lot of these on the market. Find different accessories for them. People making pallet forks, specialty buckets, hydraulic buckets, you know, multi-angle type thing. Comes with a light. It's functional. And, you know, I'm not using it commercially, and I hopefully don't have a septic tank blow up on me in the middle of the night. You know, just won't be using that much. But it does come with it. That's good enough. So that's it. That's a couple minute summary on it. Again, out of Chicago, delivered to your house. Lift truck pulls up, grabs his pallet jack, puts it on the lift gate, drops it to the ground, moved it wherever I wanted it. I just wanted to drop it here so I could run it down the hill. And I don't think it's a bad price. I think that's a lot of machine, as long as you don't get a lemon for the price. And the service from the seller and the delivery company was above and beyond. I really thought I was going to have to hook up a trailer and run down to the terminal and pick it up. But they said, no, don't worry about it. Our lift gate will handle it. And it is a 1 ton. The one gotcha on it is that it was, you know, it's a 1 ton. All the advertisements listed at about 2,200 pounds. They weighed it when it got there. So with the toolbox and as it sits today, minus my tools on it, gas tank's pretty empty. Hydraulic tank was full. It's 1,808 pounds. So I'm not quite sure where they come up with the 2,200, unless they got a pretty big boy over here in China sitting on these things. But well, I mean, it's China. Maybe they got a family of 9 running it all at once. But it's quite a bit lighter than they said it was going to be. So, something to think about. If you know what weight you really need, and you need that closer to that 2,200 that's advertised, you're probably going to be putting some plates on it. So, and it will take, you've got clearance underneath there. As long as you're not running, 4 inches of mud on those tracks, you've got weight underneath there to probably put somewhere around 200 plus pounds under the back of it. And you can bolt it up underneath there. Whether that would deform the floor plate and cause you some problems on the pivot, I don't know. But there's definitely room for a big old plate underneath there. And that's something we do a lot on our tractors and front end loaders and things like that, is we throw plates under them. Again, the back is thicker than this, but it's not really weight bearing. So if you want to, a lot of times we've welded a small receiver on the back, and that way we can put weight plates on the back there for some of these. And this one, you just have to be a little bit more careful and think through how you modify it. Which this one will be modified, just because you need to cut an access door out of this. And since this isn't really part of the weight structure, or part of the structure or part of the weight system, cutting a little access door here so that you can change oil on it a lot easier. We'll be doing that. So, but that's really the only modification we've got in mind, is to cut that open. So one last time, I'll let you look around here. Again, this is the pivot point. Hydraulic tank. It does have a filter, does not have a hydraulic cooler. Let's see if we can see through there a little bit. See the Briggs. There's the housing and the main pump for everything. And pardon me if I'm calling them pumps versus motors. That's your pump, everything else is the motors. I could pull this off. See down in here a little bit better. So there you can, whoa, about dropped the phone. So there you can see in there. There's your filter. It is a filterless Briggs & Stratton motor, so there is no filter on the motor for the oil. That obviously would be a nice upgrade. Anytime you're going to run any one of these things for any length of time because of that, just plan to put non-detergent oil in it and change it fairly regularly, especially because it's going to be inside that housing. It's going to be hot. You know, I don't know what the manual wants, but I would imagine that 5 to 10 hours you're probably changing it. And the first few times you're going to change it faster than that. So you can see some of the superstructure there. Gives it some rigidity. One thing to note, don't forget it. When you flip your seat forward, it hits these controls. So if you hop off the machine, leave it running in order to flip it over, you know, check your fuel or something like that, that's going to work the boom, you know, the stick, but it's not going to move the unit. But if you hit those just right and that thing goes wrong and that bucket's on the ground and it shoves that bucket out, you might find that machine jumping backwards on you as the boom tries to push against the ground. So just know that. And, you know, the other thing is if you got the boom up in the air and that seat gets flipped forward and hits that boom's coming down in a hurry. So just take note of that. Don't let that catch you off guard. It'd suck to have your new fancy machine covered in blood. You know, nobody likes a machine covered in blood. So that's it. Hope you enjoy it. Hope you get something out of it. Maybe this helps you fix something down the road. Thanks for watching.